And while the president focuses on jobs, we're focusing on those who have had a harder time finding them, our veterans. Did you know that they face higher unemployment rates and they're more at risk for substance abuse? And now more and more of our vets are finding themselves homeless. These men and women who fight to protect us shouldn't be returning home to nothing. I'm talking about soldiers like Luis Pinto, an Iraq War vet who slept in Iraq's foxholes with no problem, but never imagined sleeping in LA's alleyways. And get this, Luis is just one of an estimated 20,000 homeless vets in Los Angeles right now. And then Tony Reines is the executive director of New Directions, an organization started by homeless Vietnam vets. And she's dedicated to help vets like Luis get back on their feet. Great to see you both.
Hello.
Thank you. Luis, let's go ahead and start with you. Tell us what happened.
I was discharged from the U.S. military, the Army, in 2006. I came home and I noticed right away that I had a problem adjusting back to civilian life. I isolated and I started abusing drugs and alcohol. And
why were you discharged?
I just ended my 4-year commitment to the U.S. Army, and I was honorably discharged, and I just wasn't prepared to come back into civilian life.
And so you got back home, and I know your mom has been very supportive of you, but it was too much to bear for her, right? I mean, you were pretty much out on your own, and kind of give us a glimpse for your daily living.
My mom's been very supportive and loving.
But it was just too much, right? I mean, you just weren't coming home, and you were more committed to drugs and alcohol than you were mom and getting back on your feet.
Right, and I just, I had joked around in Iraq, you know, when we were living out of our rucksacks and eating, you know, out of tin cans and, you know, our MREs, that this is, you know, going from place to place, that, you know, if I ever became homeless, you know, I'd be ready for that. And I kind of applied the same survival skills out there, back out here on the streets of LA. And I'm just, I'm very fortunate to come across the people at the Salvation Army, the people at the VA, and they've helped me out a lot these past few months.
And I want to get to more of your story in just a second, but Tony, I want you to be able to chime in here because you are dealing with gentlemen like Luis on a regular basis now. And you would think, after seeing your organization formed by homeless Vietnam vets, that we would learn from history. Where do we continually fail our vets, and especially men like Luis who are coming back from Iraq?
Well, unlike after Vietnam, we now have a series of nonprofit organizations that work with the Veterans Administration to help men like Luis return to the community. However, we don't have a housing plan. We are expecting 11% of those that have been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan to return to the state of California. That's over 200,000 men and women, and there's no housing plan, there's no job plan. And although the VA is prepared to deal with the current population that is returning, that is only the medical treatment side, and we have other services that need to come together to help these men and women become whole again.
Well, and Tony, I think what's so hard for people to understand is, you know, we pay our taxes. We give the government a lot of money. And you've got people like Luis over there fighting for our freedom and having to go back not once, but 2 tours, 3 tours, and then they come back to nothing. So it can't just be the private sector that helps out. What more does the VA and our government need to do to support men and women like him?
We need a better transition from the Department of Defense into the VA and into services. And I think that that's part of it. Benefits counseling should happen while they're still within the Department of Defense, before they're released into civilian life, because it does take several months, or it could take years, before these men and women begin to get their benefits. their medical records, I believe now are being transferred from the Department of Defense into the VA. But I think there needs to be a lot more education with those that are currently in the, just before release, who are currently in the military, to understand more what PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is. And we need to do a better job of assessing for it, assessing for traumatic brain injury, and making sure that there is this seamless a transition from military into civilian life.
And Tony, you didn't, I mean, Luis, you didn't get that, right? I mean, you basically came home and it was like a slap in the face.
Yes, I mean, there was no one calling to check up on how I was doing out here again, and they have a short 2-week program, transitional assistance program for veterans or for military service that are about to be discharged, and they just, it's not extensive enough. It's not, I felt it wasn't enough. It was really just not enough.
And that is often, men and women will choose not even to go into that 2-week program because they're anxious to get back to their families.
Sure. And
so it's not mandated.
Very good point. It should be mandated. And Luis, I know that you, it got so bad that you attempted suicide, and I'm very happy that you were not successful and you're here with us, because I know you've got a supportive mom and you're a strong man, and so we want to look forward to see what you do. I know you've maintained really strong in your drug treatment program there at the Salvation Army, and
yes.
Just final thought before you go, you know, to the men and women in the military that may be struggling like you've struggled, your message to them.
You're not alone. There's going to be issues that are going to come up that you're just not going to be aware of. And to the families, if you're seeing your family members that were in the military struggling, go out to the VA, look for help out there. There is help. You just have to go out there and look for it.
Luis Pinto, you stay strong. And Tony Reines, thank you so much for what you do through New Directions and supporting men and women like Luis.
Thank you, Kira.
Thank you.
If I could just give our website, it's ndvets.org. So anybody who does need us, please go to our website. And we're happy to be there.
And I'm going to get to it right now. You just read my mind. Here it is. There's a lot of great groups like Tony's out there that if you are trying to get a job, if you want to support a vet, if you are a vet yourself, you can learn about all the group that Tony works with at newdirectionsinc.org, like she just mentioned. And another group, Swords to Plowshares, also helps vets with job placement. And coalitionforveterans.org has a number of resources for veterans. We've got links to all of these groups and others on our blog, cnn.com/Kira. And we're trying to do our part too, connecting job seekers with potential employers. 2 veterans, a married couple, will make their 30-second pitches live to the nation later this hour. Plus, why Iraq and Afghanistan war vets may have a harder time acclimating to home life than any vets before them.